In March 2023, thousands of fans queued up at the Mongkok Stadium in Kowloon for a friendly match between Hong Kong and Singapore. It was a 6,000 sellout, but the match wasn't the reason for the big crowd. The game was the last time the Hong Kong national team would officially go by that name. A few weeks earlier, the Hong Kong Football Association had agreed to change its official name to Football Association of Hong Kong, China. Now, for years, and especially after the British handed Hong Kong back to China in 1997, Hong Kong had enjoyed a degree of political, economic, cultural, and sporting independence from the mainland. Hong Kong has had its own football association and national team ever since joining FIFA in 1954, when it was still under British colonial rule, and they were recognized by the International Olympic Committee in 1951. But ever since a pro-democracy protest movement rose up in 2019 that was then subsequently crushed, their independence has been challenged, with symbols of opposition to mainland rule dismantled. And one of the most visible symbols of independence, at least until the name change, was the Hong Kong national football team and its jersey. And the thousands were not just there to watch an historic final moment. They had also arrived to buy the last ever Hong Kong shirt to be released before the name changed. And for the first time, they sold out within an hour. Hong Kong is one of the richest and most densely populated areas on Earth. Over 7 million people live in just 1,000 square kilometers, and GDP per capita is comparable to Germany and Canada. But Hong Kong's status has been one of the most controversial aspects of China's domestic and foreign policy. Hong Kong was seized by the British after the First Opium War and ceded to them officially by the signing of the Treaty of Nanking in 1842. The territory was expanded after the Second Opium War in 1898, when a 99-year lease was agreed. Over the next century, the Qing dynasty gave way to the Republic of China, and then the Communist People's Republic of China, growing to become one of the world's foremost military and economic powers. Hong Kong quietly boomed thanks to its more liberal economic and political system. But the Conservative government of British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher agreed that Hong Kong should be handed back as planned on July 1st, 1997, when the 99-year lease expired. China promised to maintain Hong Kong's status as a special administrative region for the next 50 years, as long as Hong Kong was irrevocably recognized as Chinese territory, the so-called One China, Two Systems model. This created a dichotomy between the pluralistic and liberal democratic system in Hong Kong and the authoritarian model practiced on the mainland, a tension that surfaced whenever the two faced each other in international competition. The most famous of those is the 519 incident, so called because it happened at a crucial World Cup qualification match between Hong Kong and China for Mexico '86 on the 19th of May, 1985. Hong Kong, then still a British colonial possession that used God Save the Queen as its anthem, beat China 2-1 in front of 80,000 fans at the Workers' Stadium in Beijing. Anti-foreigner riots erupted, which prevented Hong Kong's players from leaving the stadium for 2 hours. Half bricks and broken bottles rained down on the pitch, according to the South China Morning Post. The Chinese team bus and a Japanese-made taxi were overturned outside. A further 130 vehicles were destroyed. Such was the shame in losing to Hong Kong that both China's coach and FA president resigned. It was dubbed the Siege of the Workers' Stadium. When protest movements sprung up, like the 2014 Umbrella Movement, against a move to allow Beijing to veto candidates to run Hong Kong, football stadiums would become the voice of discontent, not least when it came to the singing of the Chinese national anthem. Since 1997, China's The March of the Volunteers has also been Hong Kong's official anthem. When the two teams were drawn again in the same group for 2018 World Cup qualification and played twice in 2015, Hong Kong's fans booed their own anthem. A large number turned their backs when it was sung and held up banners saying, "Hong Kong is not China." Both games finished as diplomatic 0-0 draws. The Hong Kong FA was later sanctioned by FIFA. In 2019, violent pro-democracy mass protests broke out, which again bled into football stadiums. The Chinese anthem was booed whenever the team played, whilst the fans sang "Glory to Hong Kong," an alternative anthem written during the protests. When Hong Kong played abroad, "Glory to Hong Kong" would sometimes accidentally be played before the game, angering Beijing further. But the protests were snuffed out, a crackdown on civil society began, and a new security law was introduced. The anthem issue had to be dealt with. So in June 2020, Hong Kong introduced the National Anthem Ordinance, which states that everyone must stand and, quote, deport themselves with dignity when the March of the Volunteers is played at major events, especially sporting events. Intentionally insulting the anthem now carries a maximum penalty of a 3-year jail sentence and a $6,000 fine. Although it didn't stop some of the crowd from booing the national anthem when Hong Kong played Myanmar in 2022. Following games against Thailand and Brunei at Hong Kong Stadium in 2023, it was reported that there were no issues with the anthem, but that dozens of police surrounded the most popular sections with an officer stationed on each row. Now the team's name and shirt has changed too. In January, the Sports Federation and Olympic Committee of Hong Kong, China, ordered Hong Kong's 83 sporting bodies to change their names to include China or lose funding. The newly named Football Association Hong Kong, China duly complied. On October the 12th, Hong Kong will begin their 2026 World Cup campaign against Bhutan. It will be the biggest men's finals ever, expanded to 48 teams, giving even the minnows a fighting chance of making it to the US, Mexico, and Canada. And the team is enjoying perhaps its greatest run of form. Under Norwegian coach Johan Andersen, who once led the North Korea national team, they've qualified for this year's Asian Cup finals for the first time in 55 years. It will be Hong Kong's best chance of qualifying for a World Cup. The question is, how will the crowd respond?